market can deliver. And again here, we need to look at some countries in the Middle East and of course Malaysia, which is leading the Islamic derivative field. Now, financial markets are essential for the functioning of a strong economy. And here we're looking at a multitude of functions, everything from policy to savings, matching the deficit with the surplus units, acting as that black box. And that box, basically, that processor, is what we talk about when we refer to the financial market. And a strong financial market proves strong economic growth. I mean, the statistics, the empirical research has indicated that for successful economic growth and progression, you need a stable, strong, well-regulated financial market. A financial market that is not excessively debt or has an excessive debt burden. And that is essential to understand. When we say a financial market, we're not talking about excessive debt. We're talking about a kind of sharing economy. And we're hoping that that is through an ethical finance forum. Now, let's talk about how the Islamic capital market can actually connect people. And I've just highlighted three aspects here. If you can remember these three critical points: one, innovation; two, inclusion; and three, socio-economic development. And they're all interlinked. They're all actually closely interlinked. If you look at innovation, what does innovation do? Innovation actually provides the customer with choice of product, an open market. Research has indicated that the more open your market is, the stronger the economic growth. This is very important. The more open your market is, the stronger the economic growth. When I say open market, we're not talking about Islamization necessarily of an economy, where you have, a pluralistic economy such as Nigeria. We're talking about opening the opportunities for everyone. And in order to do that, you need to offer products that will facilitate or allow the facilitation of those that have not been in the market before. And that's when we come to inclusion. Of course, we're not just talking about financial inclusion here. One aspect is financial inclusion, but it's also local connectivity. Local connectivity is also a form of inclusion. Financial inclusion is originally defined as, the access to banking and financial markets. Here, we want to take it a step forward, and we're saying, what is the actual impact? And in fact, that is the underlying thread of connecting people. It's all about impact, isn't it? So when we say financial inclusion, we say local connectedness. The impact of utilizing a financial market is the creation or the building of highways, railroad links, telecommunications, infrastructure, access to water and sanitation. All of that creates local connectedness, taking the step from financial inclusion into the impact of financial inclusion. Now that's just the local environment. What's the next step? The next step is the global connectedness, isn't it? From establishing a strong local body, meaning a functioning local environment, now you can actually connect to the world. And to connect to the world, you need a financial market to support you for what? For airlines. Specifically for transport, for communications, for accessibility, for understanding financial technology and applying it successfully for the benefit of impact inclusion, not just financial inclusion. Ultimately, what does this result in? This results in socio-economic development, does it not? When we have a financial market that is focused on inclusion and the improvement of society, that develops society. So socio-economic development is what is the ultimate impact. Now we're looking at how can we impact the actual market? Well, now we need to look at ethical finance. We need to look at SRIs, socially responsible investment. We need to look at ESGs, ethical, social, and governance investments. Here, we're talking about transparency and disclosure. That means if you want to invest in a company, you now hold the trump card. You saying, I will hold my investment back unless and until you have transparency and equality for minority shareholders, you have proper disclosure, an accounting treatment so that we know exactly what the company is involved in. We want to ensure that how you invest and what you invest in and why you invest is actually for the benefit of the public and not just a single bottom line. The common terminology we use now is called the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line is actually benefiting the community as much as it benefits that private company or public corporate. And it's amazing that Islamic ethical finance has always stood for socio-economic empowerment and upliftment. However, there has been a massive hype around the UN SDG 17 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, 17 goals specifically, set to change the world by 2030, actually will find their roots in Islamic finance, in Islamic law. Why? Because it talks about that socio-economic empowerment and upliftment. Let's look at innovation in a little bit more detail. Non-interest banking is actually at the forefront of financial engineering. And think about it. You've got restrictions, significant restrictions. You're not allowed to be involved in interest. No uncertain or ambiguous transactions. No transactions that look like gambling. You limit monopolies and short selling, and it has a list of prohibitions. No two sales in one, etc. Now, because of all of these prescriptions and restrictions, structurers, Sharia scholars, bankers, practitioners have to be quite innovative, don't you agree? They've got to come around all of these prohibitions, yet they've got to work within a regulatory environment that's not geared for pure Islamic finance. It's geared for a secular environment. So in order to actually succeed in this environment, you need to be quite resourceful. And that means you need to provide significant amounts of financial engineering in your products to come around the Islamic rules, to ensure that you comply with the Islamic rules, whilst at the same time complying with local regulation. The impact of financial innovation is quite open, and I've seen it in the SEC handbook that everyone should have a copy of, handed outside. In there we talk, financial innovation is talked about, and of course it increases economic growth. We know that financial innovation has a positive impact on economic growth. Innovation completes inherently incomplete markets. This is a very important point. Innovation, financial innovation, completes inherently incomplete markets. It basically takes an underdeveloped market very quickly to an international benchmark once you begin innovation. But you have to be careful. That innovation must be done without the objective of simply innovating and creating something new, but rather impact investments, impact structures that are actually resulting in some sort of positive environmental development. It promotes inclusiveness because with innovation, you provide additional choice to the market. You are now bringing in a market or a niche target segment that was not catered for before. If you look at Indonesia, Indonesia is a 200 million strong country. 200 million, 85% to 90% are Muslim. But financial inclusion is at 36%. Only 36%. By innovative products and engineering, you can actually bring a significant amount of that potential in public inside this environment, this economic development. Kenya is another example. You could not possibly reach everyone in the rural areas in Kenya. So what was the solution? M-Pesa. M-Pesa suddenly brings everyone in very, very quickly because everyone has a mobile phone. Now, there are some countries that still believe in the bricks and mortar banks and buildings and branches. But within the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see an increase in virtual banking. I mean, we see it already throughout Europe. We are looking at financial technology or fintech and peer-to-peer lending and financing. So once you look at that, you realize that innovation is actually positively promoting financial inclusion. It also increases efficiency because as we innovate, we're actually solving a problem first. When we innovate, and as long as we're innovating by solutions and not innovating for the sake of innovation, then we are solving problems. And usually the problems we're solving is inefficiency. Inefficiency in the market due to high levels of bureaucracy and red tape, inaccessibility, inconvenience, etc. So with good impact innovation, we actually can impact on efficiency and reduce overall costs. And we'll be able to rebalance the risk across the varied sectors of the economy. But there are challenges. Of course, you can't simply implement and create financial engineering products or very advanced products in an environment that is still establishing basic regulation. So we do realize that regulation is going to be a limiting factor. In addition, structuring and financial engineering takes a lot of expertise, and that means the structuring costs tend to be pretty high. So the initial setup costs are very high in innovation, and that is a fact. Complicated financial engineering can actually be quite misunderstood. And when it's misunderstood, you might have significant selling of a product that's not understood at all. And if we remember the impact of CDS and toxic assets, naturally the products were not well understood, because if they were, people would have understood the risk of that product and would have stayed away. So the understanding of complicated and innovative products is also a limiting factor. And the other issue is innovation also has a slight negative. When we look at substantive versus formative law, Islamic law is very careful on substance and form. And when we look at substance in a transaction, we want to ensure that the Islamic law is not being sidestepped simply to promote an interest-based transaction. An example of that is the Bay'ul Aina transaction. And of course, I don't have the time to discuss the details of the Aina, but the Aina transaction is something that is majority prohibited because it's seen as a sidestepping of the Islamic law, utilizing of legal stratagems or legal devices or hila to make something impermissible permissible. But for new entrants, you also have challenges, and this is where we might have delays in regulatory incompatibilities. With new innovation, new sukuk, of course, the regulation needs to be up to that before you can actually issue these securities. Now, in inclusion, economic growth improves with financial development. We know that. The empirical studies have shown us that. Increased financial inclusion has a positive impact on growth. Low inclusion rates in the OIC countries have been shown to be as a result of access and choice. Now, this is important. Why do we have 36% inclusion in India? Is it because customers refuse to get into, because they don't have access? When we've tested this across the world, we find that the number one debilitating factor for inclusion is actually access to the financial market. You are in an environment, in a rural area, where you don't understand the financial market, you don't have a branch, and you're not literate enough to understand how a bank works. Well, that will restrict you already. You could be literate, you could have the wealth, but you're still afraid to go in because you might not be comfortable with a trust. The big issue, of course, we say beyond trust today is the issue of access, but that's going to be solved with financial technology going forward. And through local connection, we've talked about this. We said that emerging markets and the lower developing countries, of course, the LDCs, have isolated communities due to lack of infrastructure. And this is, again, access to financial markets. Capital-intensive infrastructure projects, they will actually increase the accessibility to markets. So if you wanted to know what is the link of connecting people, it's infrastructure development as well. Some examples of inclusion and promotion of inclusion. ICM products actually support financial inclusion. In 2016 and 2017, in Malaysia, in Sarawak, they issued a sukuk, hydro sukuk. Here we're talking about providing energy to a large population that had no energy before, had no electricity before. A hydro sukuk was issued to the value of 1.3 billion US dollars. The Dana Infra Sukuk, what you're seeing is only an issuance for 2016, $2.2 billion. In total, we're looking at in excess of 20 billion US dollars for the Dana Infra Perpetual Sukuk. It's connectedness, basically a mass rapid transport system that links all the suburbs around Kuala Lumpur to the center, around a 30 to 40 kilometer radius. And that's well underway and already functional in the first phase. Etihad Airways also issued a sukuk of $1.5 billion. That's an example of global connectedness. You can see on the right a number of examples of inclusion in Jordan, but I want to point out Mobily network. Mobily, of course, here is another example of airtime connection, communication. So we've talked about electricity as connection. We've talked about infrastructure development through rapid transport systems, and then global connectedness through airlines. And now we talk about actual communication. So you see at every aspect, capital markets actually promote connectedness of people. There are a number of other examples. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but just highlight the latest renewable energy sukuk, now issued, of course, in 2017. So beyond the actual connectedness, it's also ethical. It's also renewable. It's not taking advantage of fossil fuels. It's taking advantage of other forms of energy, protecting the environment. So when we say Islamic capital markets connect people, they must connect them ethically. They cannot connect them unethically. You can't connect and leave that as the end justifying the means. You connect using a sustainable, responsible, impactful method. In Germany, wind farms to the value of $100 million, financed through Islamic finance. In Germany, advantages of the Islamic capital market solutions. Of course, it encourages product innovation because we need to comply with the Sharia rules. They are more sophisticated products. And of course, they are demanded by the consumer. The consumer wants a Sharia compliant product. And therefore, you've got to engineer, you've got to be innovative, you've got to comply with the Sharia board's requirements. What we're stressing is, it should no longer be just a checklist of Sharia compliance. It needs to take that paradigm shift towards an environmental, sustainable, ethical objective. And once we reach that, we will achieve the true objectives of what Islamic law sets out. Socio-economic empowerment through ethical finance. We want to create a conducive environment for this ethical finance objective, because we have not get out of hand, where you selling derivatives upon derivatives upon derivatives. In order to correct that, you need to go back to the form of Islamic finance. And the form of Islamic finance and the substance of Islamic finance is all about the real asset. It's all about the linkage to the real economy. A very brief research found that an Islamic capital market actually enhances financial depth. The top 5 emerging markets with significant increase in financial depth all recently included Islamic capital market infrastructure. This is very interesting. This is to the benefit of everyone. There is no, restriction on religion here. We're saying if you implement an Islamic capital market regulation and infrastructure, you're benefiting the entire economy. You're creating financial depth. Islamic capital market here. And if we could just apply it from that.
I told you he would for Sheikh Ziyad. Please come to. I think the mic is on. Could I get?
Very much. It's an ethical finance.
Please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim Shelling from Abuja Leasing Company. Professor, thank you very much for the presentation.
To stretching your standing, connecting people through financially, including.
Sheikh Ziyad, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Very good questions. First question is legal framework. Ultimately, you've got to realize where it comes from. It comes from Europe. And because it comes from Europe, a lot of Europe to be done. I'll tell you where the work is required. The work is required in bankruptcy law, specifically in Islamic bankruptcy law. You will find that the US bankruptcy law fits very well within the Islamic bankruptcy requirements. Scholars sit on so many boards. It's because they can actually assess and analyze the difference between an individual contract in itself and when it's put together with another contract in a combination. So this is the ability that Sharia scholars are expected to have when they are actually assessing and analyzing the permissibility of transactions. So if the question is, can we Al-Maliki and the Hanbali schools that look toward financial development indicators set up by Thomson Reuters assesses over the last few years the development of a country with regards to awareness. They have 5 indicators, one of them is awareness. The number one country in the world, consistently number one in terms of highest level of Islamic financial development, is which country? Yes, Malaysia. Second is, anyone? Bahrain. And then you have the rest, UAE, Saudi Arabia, which is fifth, and it continues like that. But realize why they have been so successful. It's because there's a conference or a workshop taking place in Malaysia and Bahrain every second or third day. Without a week, a week does not go by unless a conference has taken place at some level, in some sort of specialist topic. It's not just fundamentals of Islamic finance anymore. It's a deeper look at the issue of legal frameworks and their compatibilities to trusteeship and so forth, and work with the culture as long as it tenets of Islamic law. Perfect the condition going forward that will see the success of Islamic finance. Thank you very much for the questions.
Session. I'm always happy when I see people from Sudan. It's one of the countries I really love and have visited a number of times. So he is Mr. Tariq Osman in the Sudan, and KOI. Panelists, Mahmoud Musa Insurance Group, the CAF, and he has helped and supported with drafting the law for the CAF operate in the Gambia. He continues to share experiences and expertise within the region. By our next panelist, you may see on your program Ghani Musa of Cornerstone. He's not here. He's represented by Iran.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's been a wonderful morning listening to Professor Zaid, which is actually the theme of the whole conference itself. Without wasting much time, this particular session is about the development of the Takaful and Islamic capital stability. I'm sure from yesterday, several speakers have mentioned, say, in a rough, and so that
businessman, and I think I'd like to take you through a journey through capital insurance through our company, United Insurance, and how that has made complete business sense and our trial through the years. United Insurance was established 50 years ago almost. Next year we're going to celebrate our 50th birthday, and now we're coming into 25 years of the capital insurance. So we have a reasonable amount of years in practice. Presentation have 3 purposes. The first is to explain the Sudanese model of Takaful. I think the Nigerian model is very similar to it. We have almost 24 years. The second part would be the new model of insurance. I actually believe that Takaful competes with any insurance company in the world, and if applied correctly, can compete with the AIGs, with the Lloyds, and give the better system of Takaful or insurance service to customers than conventional insurance. The third would be how you can create stability in the markets in this new world. I call it a new shared history. By the authority, we're adopting the new law. Actually, today it's in the Parliament to establish the new 2017 version of hopefully this will bring in maybe 20 years of experience into a new law that can actually be a model for the world, or a reference that will govern the future of the Takaful. The model we have in Sudan is a hybrid model. We have the Takaful operator. The participants do not have any institutionalized influence or even the most crucial decisions of the TO. This is in most companies. However, it seems the Sudanese model is the only exception to that model. It unlocks our customers for the approval. Matters to the shareholders and based on the company strategy, when you do it, you have to follow it. It's a company limited in company created by construction, invested in prime. In 2012, we resolved this. We created a partnership agreement. Usually we used to follow a Mudaraba model. And this was the first time ever, I think, in the history of the world, there was a partnership agreement between shareholders and policyholders. And that was why this agreements. Even the supervisory authority never had that opportunity to ifti or go discussion about that because there was no partnership. It was following a Mudaraba model. So it's the first time you do something, there's always issues coming up. Shareholder representation. In 2012, now, but I have nothing to do with insurance, so I have nothing. My general manager is still there. I'm in charge of all the investments, which is where shareholders get their profits from, as well as the strategy of the company. I care about where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years. Representative actually brings in a lot. In 2015, we created job description. The chairman, you start with creating a job description, term limits. That's in a healthy debate on when people should leave their positions. In 2016, we held our first company retreat. We revisited our vision, mission, strategy, objectives. This led to a couple of more things that we developed. In 2017, we established our first international-based investment company in the UAE. In 2017, we developed 2 more new committees, an executive committee and a CSR committee. Even the donations we give can be hijacked. So we created a committee to judge that, to just make sure that everything is documented, checked, balanced, and people are done it in a more professional way. By 2018, we're hopefully expanding into the region. We're looking at East Africa, but I love my visit here, so if you guys would ever have us here, we'd love to come to Nigeria too. User acceptance in 2012 of the Takaful model by the board of directors, shareholders of due to our GM in creating a solid investment backbone that led to income for the shareholders. I talked about this. The free elections. Another important thing, we moved the general manager and the managing director from both the audit committees and they became non-voting members of both the executive and investment committees. Just as we become staff, I have to take off my shareholder hat now, and I am a staff member of the company. And this makes me not a voting member of these committees. We put in our opinion, we are members of it because we are one of the active people managing the company, but we don't get to vote. Now, one of the most important things, we used to hijack the policyholder meeting. How you just make sure that at least 60% of the people there from your policyholders. So now what do we do? That's there. By the end of this year, we're going to issue a book that everybody that comes and insures with us, from a little car to a factory, we're going to give you a book demonstrating how you can connect it to the board of directors, demonstrating how you distribute the surplus, demonstrating all your rights as the customers to the company. The fact that you're in Sudan and it's completely Islamic model or Islamic does not make it people believe it is Islamic or truly applicable. You have to do it by action. By giving people the rights, by giving them the book, then the customers actually know their full rights. I believe in convergence. Things come all at the same time at certain points, certain happen here and there, and then it comes together. So it's these challenges, these disagreements, success and failure that have made us grow stronger and stronger. Again, I go on the underlying feeling of intention or niyyah was good at the time. Our disagreements are always healthy and we're always objective, and as long as they're objective, you're okay. So the whole industry, the Takaful industry, faced many challenges. The fact that it was forced upon us, I would say, is the first challenge here. do a pestle analysis on Sudan, you look at it, it says Islam is actually an opportunity. Anything here that's listed there, you can find an advantage to. We don't have a knowledge base. We don't have people trained. Capitals all over the world. That's a problem. We need to start merging them together and coming up with models that work. Development of required staff is a problem. Development of corporate governance has to be a problem. Development of Sharia boards and sinkers and innovation and things that Sheikh Zaid and other thinkers were talking about. These are all things that have to come up with the same challenges. Islamophobia is a big problem in the world. One of the biggest problems I want to talk about, though, is halal washing. Or I learned this in a London conference, and people where they think in the Islamic model is just putting different words into the same thing. You talk about banking, and you think an Islamic bank is no different than you instead of interest, you call it charges. You just find the different words. So actually, it has to be the action that you prove it. How are you different? In insurance, we can do this by giving money back, by doing things that are completely different than what conventional insurance does. In banking and financial institutes, this is one of the biggest problems that's facing, that most people, even Muslims, do not believe it. You'll find most people, I'm sorry, I will go, able to compete, factor that makes it competitive with the other type of product that is being offered. The penetration goes to all. Africa is crazy potential, less than 2% penetration level. Africa is where people, between the customer, the company, and the people. All right, I finished on all. You can read the rest of it in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tariq. I'm sorry I was hounding you over here. While the session was going on, one of our panelists arrived, Mr. Zubair Mughal, who is the CEO of Al-Huda Center of Islamic Banking and Economics, and also the founding director of Islamic Microfinance Network and chief editor of Islamic Microfinance News, which is a dedicated magazine on Islamic microfinance. We want to recognize the presence and arrival of Dr. Umar Mutallab. You're most welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Mr. Tariq. I'm sure a lot of people have learned one or two things from your experience. It's fascinating that you have policy holders on your board. I wonder how you manage to scale through, and then those advantages that you have experienced. I'm sure a lot of people will want to know about that during the question and answer session. I'll call on the MD of Jais Takaful, Mr. Mamadou Musa Jouf, to present his paper.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you, Brother Tajuddin. We are very much appreciative of Brother Khalil's paper. It's well presented and full of information. You will agree with me, if you have been in the takaful industry, that he has come to pose a lot of challenges to operators in the way forward. We highly appreciate their transparency and inclusion of participants to the management of their takaful operations. Our duty, if moderation role, is to assist in recapping key issues discussed as a professional colleague for better digestion. We're just to pick on all the salient points that he discussed so that you understand it better and you are in a better position to ask more questions for enlightenment. Well, I always do believe also that in forums like this, it's very important to kind of give a recap on what we are discussing, which is Islamic insurance takaful. The basics are very important, and leaving them behind, some of us are talking in high language, which is not to the basic consumer. And some of us are here on with different understanding of Islamic finance, with all that we've been discussing from yesterday to today. Takaful as an Islamic insurance concept of doing insurance, we say, is just for you to understand that Brother Usman said conventional have been there for years, for ages. It has never changed. But we also have Dr. Zaid around. It's difficult to speak after him anyway. He's an encyclopedia brain, they say, to kind of transfer your risk to them and go to sleep. To make it more digestive to those who have not done insurance, Islamic insurance before, we are saying take the product motor insurance. You walk into any conventional insurance company, the first thing they ask you is what's the value of your vehicle. You say 100,000. They do their calculation and say pay us 5,000. During the course of this period, if you suffer a loss, we will pay you. So you have transferred the risk of loss to them. You go to sleep because you're traveling to office everywhere every day. Once you get involved in an accident, you go back to them, they give you money to repair or buy you another vehicle and the like. But the question has always been with conventional practice like that. You say this money I'm giving to you is to cover a possibility of suffering a loss. But what about if I do not suffer a loss? At the end of the year, the contract has expired, I come back to you to renew my fire insurance or this particular motor insurance. All you are saying, Dr. Said, you've been a very good customer. We are giving you 15% discount or 10% discount, but you have to pay again. You've lost your first year's payment. So, come to look at it, we are saying insurance companies have never used their own money to settle any claim. They collect money from 5 million people, and if they settle 1,000 claims in a year, the rest of the money they sit on to say it was a profitable year for them. But that money, that capital was never yours. You got it from the people to settle claims. So if there is any surplus to be realized or profit, in fairness, in all fairness, it is just right for you to call those who have not suffered losses and give them their share of the surplus or profit that you have generated, because the capital was not yours in the first place. Those are the basics with Takaful. You come to insure, you are considered a participant in the creation of a fund or a pool for the mutual benefit of all participants. You are not a client. You are not transferring your risk, but you are coming to share your risk. The higher your value introduced to the pool, the more you contribute towards the pool. But the profit generated by that pool belongs to you. We distribute it back to you. But are we charitable as operators? No. We are operating for you. We promote it, we invest, we settle claims. So it is right for you to pay us our management expenses. Our brother Khalid here is saying the model, there is a model where management decides that you are taking 15%. And that 15% is what you need to manage as operators to make it profitable, but everything else belongs to the participants. At the end of the year, whatever profit is generated will go for distribution. In some jurisdictions, you say, depending on the model, some models would say wakala, where you take upfront charge for that service you are rendering, and the rest belongs to the participants. Profit must go to them 100%. Another would say hybrid, where you employing an upfront charge and part of profit also comes to operator. But here in his presentation, if you do get that as the basics of Takaful, we are saying, if that is appreciated, we now go forward to his presentation. What he is saying is, if we are claiming to be that fair to participants, where they come to us and give us their contribution, and we have a board that decide on that contribution or the affairs of the institution. In the absence of their representation on that board, we are yet to be completely transparent and fair. Well, somewhere Dr. Ziad mentioned today where some dilution can cause the contract to be void, absolutely void, or there is a way to purify. We also had yesterday, in yesterday's presentation, where it was mentioned that the unethical finance and Sharia compliant, and it was very interesting to professionals to get the gist of it. It can be ethical so long as it is made to be fair, that this is the contract that takes care of you and takes care of me, but it's yet to be Islamic finance until it fulfills its obligation of Sharia compliance. And that Sharia compliance now is saying we can still say it is Sharia compliant, full 100% takaful. The takaful operator, their company in particular, would have one person representing clients or participants in the market, so that whatever they decide towards investment, towards claims settlement and all that, the board is directing, but the board has also one of the directors as a rep of participants to voice out their concern. Thank you. I cannot conclude this moderation without mentioning that MedSkills research method have really continued to serve the continent, and in particular Nigeria. Your research method is perfect. The way you get people that have got new innovations to add to Islamic finance is highly appreciated. I don't know how you got Brother Khalid to come and reveal this, which is a very big challenge for us. And last night, award ceremony also, it was mentioned how Sister, the head of Sister, what? Right? Huh? Yeah, Sister Umuhani, how she got Dr. Said here in the first instance without knowing him, but he knew she is adding value to the industry by bringing a person like him. And it is in the same like that she also got me from Gambia when she got me here for the first time. I didn't know her. I didn't know how she got to know that I would come to deliver or whatever. But keep it up, continue. The entire continent owes you a lot of gratitude. You are really doing well. We would continue to look up to you to continue to add value and all the new tools on board. Brother Khalid mentioned that they are not only having participants represented at board level, but they also have participants represented at even board committee levels, where we talk of investment committees. It is the fund of the participants, how do we invest it and all that. The participants have a representation. But anyway, we start counting from one. So that means that Nigeria, Brother Tajuddin said it was a rough beginning, but we thank God that we are on track now. We are getting on. We've started and we are only faced with the challenge of improving. So starting where we are doing something which is acceptably takaful with 3 windows and 2 full-fledged companies is definitely to be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Momodu Diouf. We have a little short presentation before the continuation of the rest of the discussions. You have noticed our esteemed guests from Dubai, who are guests of the chairman, Dr. Umar Mutallab, and they are going to give us just a short few minutes presentation on the organization. I wish to call on the CEO of Al-Markaz Al-Alami Lil-Iqtisad Al-Islami, the International Center of Islamic Economy, ICIE, based in Dubai, the CEO, Mr. Sultan Al-Huwaymil. Please put your hands together for Mr. Sultan Al-Huwaimil.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد. International Center of Islamic Economy ICIE was established with a strategic partnership with Dubai government in Dubai Airport Free Zone in accordance with Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum initiative. Dubai is the capital of Islamic economy. ICIE focus or private. ICIE has accumulated experience and in-depth skills and knowledge in providing halal search, halal research and halal investments, sukuk investments as well to government and private sector clients. A training professional certificate for specialists in Islamic banking. ICIE also provides studies and research in the field of Islamic economy and hosts different type of events to provide applicable solutions and to deliver practical recommendations. Finally, ICIE would like to invite you to its upcoming event next month in Dubai on Transformation Forum, which is very important for financial institutions in Nigeria to attend. Please visit our website for more details about our services and initiatives. And thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, brother. ICIE is one of those organizations that are there to provide Jais, Takaful, Nur Takaful, and then all the other windows and those ones that will be coming after us. We have had cause to interact with them in the past. To move ahead, we'll call on Sister Taiba to come and make
our religion. We did research. Probably the country has, thank God, sukuk is growing in Nigeria of today. I think about a few years back, Osun State sukuk came up. It was oversubscribed. Based on my understanding too, the federal government sukuk was equally oversubscribed, the 100 billion. This is a good thing in the Islamic world. And I believe the investment, non-interest investment arm can do a lot to bring a lot of this investment opportunity to play. If we look at the way conventional work, there's something we call utmost good faith. I believe under the Takafu, it's worked better and it's even more pronounced, because before you take up a Takafu business, you must be sure that what you want to do is in line with the ethics of the religion. You can't just come, for example, you want to cover your business. If your business into unacceptable portfolios, you cannot be under Takafu. And this gives most of the Muslim community the opportunity to understand the need why they have to do things right. But we believe we still have little challenge, especially on the Sharia expertise. Because as a Takafu operator, you are expected and you are compelled fee be plugged into any of these when it's questioned, or capital markets. I believe our capital market, non-interest bank, and equally Takafu, they are the three sectors that can grow the Islamic finance in any economy. And the ball is on our court. I really appreciate the organizer for giving us opportunity.
Thank you, Sister Toiba. She has touched on so many salient points. One of each, which is the issue of investment avenues. Where do we invest our funds, even when we collect the funds from the participants? Because at the end of the day, the participants is either we want equitably, because the funds will be lying fallow, there will be time value of really, then we will be in bigger trouble. So I'll call on Brother Mughal to come and make his presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I would like to thank to the organizers to give me opportunity to sit in the Takaful and Islamic Capital Mosque in Sudan. I like that the company was established in Sudan that Takaful pertained to the for recently you can also have another accounting standard, Sharia standard, IT in many countries. IT systems. IT system is also not very available. Yes, there are some IT systems which are based in Middle East. Like Chase, at software $1 million, how can we sustain at a Kafur company in a country where in Pakistan we have 200 million, but in a system for to Nigerian market and manner, standing loan to the by the but the price allowed 1 million Polish product with such benefit that what will be the want to need all 5,000 staff eliminate for the other purposes. But due to the delivery channel, they sell out that product with the price of $2 to the poor countries of the cap.
Thank you, Brother. We have had the presenters know various experiences that they have had. I'd just like to add that presently in Nigeria now, about being a guideline for investment. So even if we had the